Hello everyone, this is Sridhar Bhamidi, your host for today. The journey of any new product is always an exciting one. Here at FlashScore Cricket, we've always been excited at how things have panned out. And who better to talk about that than Stewart Moseley, the pioneer of this project and the brains behind it. Please welcome Stewart Moseley to our first ever podcast episode. Stewart, it's a pleasure having you today.
Thanks for having me on this very first podcast as well.
We also have with us my colleague Kris Hinz, who is an expert in Sri Lankan cricket. Just like his idol Sangakkara, he is a class act in whatever he does. Kris, welcome to the show, and it's a pleasure to have you on our first episode.
Thanks very much for that flattering introduction, Sridhar, and certainly I'm pleased to be here.
For our listeners, Kris is also going to do a section within our podcast which will be cricket news, and every episode he'll come up with what's happening around in the cricket world so that you will get to know what are the matches that we are covering from FlashScore Cricket and how do you stay connected with us. Stewart, okay, here we start.
How are you, Sridhar? How's lockdown been for you?
I'm great, and lockdown's much better than what I initially thought it would be. It gave me good time to spend with family, and except for the fact that there is no cricket, everything else has been really good.
The downside has been the lack of cricket or the lack of sport in general, I guess, but it's given us all of a chance to do some extra DIY and get those gardens looking nice as well, I guess.
Absolutely. Learn some household chores.
Exactly. I've drawn the line at ironing, though.
Right. So, in fact, it gives us time to ponder back on how our journey has started. And it would be great if you can actually start with how things started at FlashScore and how things moved from being a football-centric product to, getting closer to being a cricket-centric one.
Well, sure. I mean, FlashScore, as you know, was and is primarily a company providing just live scores for a whole host of sports. And I believe it is still today the world's number one provider of this type of live score content. To date, there have been around 80 million or so app downloads, and the company has around 40 to 50 million active users. So, as you can see, it's pretty big in the world of live scores. The branch into cricket commentary was therefore something completely different for the company, and I believe its first foray into original live content. So I was initially tasked with looking into the possibility of cricket commentary, and I did an analysis of market and ball-by-ball commentary. And thereafter I was asked to work with the developers to create a commentary platform. This commentary delivery platform obviously had to fulfill the commentators' needs on the back end, whilst also being visually appealing to users on the front end. That obviously took a fair amount of time to produce, especially as the developers were all Czech and as confused about cricket as many people around the world are. But once it was finalised, my next job was to source commentators and train them, obviously. Your colleague Bruce Allen was first on board, who was already working for the company, while yourself, Sridhar, I believe you followed a couple of weeks later. I seem to recall we had some interaction over email during the previous summer, so when this opportunity arose, I immediately thought of you. In terms of the commentary style, something I'd been thinking about, obviously, from the very beginning, and I'd written up a host of guidelines for you guys, but between the three of us, then Bruce, yourself and me, we further developed this over the first few months of the project. As with anything, these things take time. Find your natural rhythm and how you want to do things. But we wanted to be a bit different and given a fuller and more informative commentary. I wanted the team to express themselves more than I see in other commentaries, at least anyway. That's why I believe we have the fullest and most informative pre-match and wraps out there.
Indeed. Do you think that's the only difference FlashScore Cricket has to offer compared to other established services, or do you think you have something already lined up and exciting? Say the Twitter interaction for FlashScore Cricket has been really good. So do you think there is something else which keeps FlashScore Cricket unique from others?
I think it's just the fullness of our commentaries, starting with the pre-match. We give far more information to users. We keep people informed so much better. And also we produce a lot of stats, and users love stats to pass on to their mates via social media. Cricket is a sport where fans love their statistics, just like baseball in America. They're very similar sports in one sense. So that makes us stand out, I think. If you compare our commentaries to any of the other commentaries, they really are. There's a lot more detail in there. There's a lot more interaction between commentators as well, especially during rain breaks. And I think there's a lot more humour in ours. A lot of the other ones almost coming more automated in a sense, just focusing on the ball by ball, whereas we're going the other way, really. We're trying to make it interesting for users with a lot of information in there as well, which can be passed on social media.
Fair that you brought social media into the discussion here, because I was always wondering if the engagement model for a Twitter commentator on match day, which is pretty unique at FlashScore Cricket, is it different compared to the other commentary roles? And what do you set any parameters saying the prime focus of a Twitter commentator should be, or do you give the freedom for the commentator to play along to the Twitterati gallery?
It's a role that needs to highlight the moment and quickly. I mean, our commentary needs to be fast as well, especially the ball by ball. But Twitter, you have to be fast to be noticed, and you have to be relevant. The faster, the better. Humour works very well on Twitter. And again, with us having a big focus on stats and records, etc., and being able to post those quickly, they can gain attention. And the whole point of our Twitter focus is then to draw people back to our commentary, really. But the team member who's assigned the Twitter duties for that part of the match, the focus can be broad, and it's down to them to engage the best they can and react accordingly.
Indeed, well said. I was looking at the numbers that you told earlier, and the way FlashScore Cricket has progressed over time for the entire engagement. I was wondering, do you foresee a bigger role for cricket in the entire FlashScore stable? Or more specifically, will there be a day when cricket will come up and say it is the frontline sport for FS, or will football remain that?
I think it's going to remain football. Definitely. It's going to be very hard for cricket to gazump football, I would say. I think our focus we may focus more on the Indian subcontinent, and maybe our FlashScore site in India, the .in site, will grow over time more and more. But I don't think, in terms of the worldwide, I think it's very hard for us to become bigger than football.
Oh, that's very honest. Yes, Stewart. Yeah. Even personally, I don't see that, because primarily football is a global sport, and no matter what cricket lovers say, cricket fans say, and even the administrators say, cricket remains a sport that is played only by a select few.
Yeah, I mean, obviously India has a population of 1.3 billion and they're all cricket mad, but the whole cricket audience is something like 1.6 billion people, whereas football can cover the whole world. The whole 7 billion people at some point could be interested in football, where there are limitations with cricket, despite it being huge in the Indian subcontinent. Yeah.
Very interesting that you spoke about the cricket mad Indian subcontinent and the fervor that Indian fans bring to the table. I remember some of the discussions we had with Twitter fans during matches just before COVID. There were quite a few asking us to cover even the domestic tournaments like Ranji trophies, and even the DIY Patil tournament, which is a very local tournament which is played in Mumbai. So the big question comes is, with the changing conditions because of COVID-19, do you see a change template for the broadcasters and commentators? Because we all know now that the template has changed entirely for the players and administrators. Yeah. They're not looking at playing on a day-to-day basis, and even the players will have to be very careful. So do you see changing template for the broadcasters and commentators as well?
Well, well, everyone may have to adapt to different formats, maybe, of the game, but this could possibly have been the case even without COVID, in terms of cricket, at least. I think cricket may be more open to different formats, unlike other sports, such as football again. This is probably partly down to the length of most cricket games and the need to engage with audiences more than ever due to the increasing demands placed on people's time. So there's always this debate with cricket how we can change things and make things more interesting for users, and maybe COVID will, bring around some more changes. But in terms of FlashScore itself, I see us sticking mainly to the international matches. Obviously we do the IPL and BBL, and hopefully at some point we'll also look at the PSL and the Bangladesh Premier League as well. But we'll have to see. At the moment, I'm fairly happy with what we cover. So I think that's probably the way we go for now.
Fair point. In fact, when you broached upon the topic of extending and expanding to some of the important tournaments that are already happening, one thing that comes to my mind is the budding text commentators, because things have changed so much over the past 1 year that you must have noticed a lot of emails coming to you as well as to the entire team. And what suggestions do you have for someone who is young, someone who wants to come into the text commentary field? Because this is pretty much new, to be very frank.
Well, yeah. We have, 6 commentators as part of our small team at the moment, and all of you guys had to learn how to commentate, basically, because none of you came to us as seasoned commentators. So this question is relevant, really, and to look at the what a budding text commentator, some tips for them all, so forth. I guess you have to look at the attributes of a commentator, what weapons you need in your arsenal. So I guess you need, in terms of what you need to get on that path to being a commentator, you'd need an absolute understanding of the game, stating the obvious. Particularly important is in fielding positions, the type of ball bowled and the type of shot played. I mean, it's just critical. You can't be a text commentator without that knowledge. Thereafter, you need a high standard of written English, or whatever language is required for that matter, the ability to type quickly and accurately, and a willingness to express yourself and describe the play as you see it. Basically, if you all have all that covered, then go for it. Send in an application. Hopefully at some point we'll be growing as well, so we'll be happy to hear from you.
At some point we will be growing, and definitely at one point we will require more hands on the deck. So anyone and everyone who's listening to this, prepare your resume, send it across. We are not looking at any experience. We just need your passion to come out. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I can see that you are almost geared up for the first ball to be bowled, and it's a bit of surprise that England is actually hosting the first match post-COVID as things stand right now. So
yes, because the situation in the UK is still among the worst in the world. So it is a surprise. But then when you look at it from the other point of view, it is the cricket calendar is UK or England centric at this time of year anyway. So there's a reason for it, I guess.
Absolutely. And not just the excitement of seeing live cricket, but also the new excitement of how things would be, how will the players respond to the new templates, how will the changing conditions will be, especially the bowlers, how will they respond to using no saliva on the ball. So there's a lot to look forward to, right?
There is, and it can't come soon enough, really, for all of us as lovers of the game, and you guys as commentators. It's been a long time since you've been sitting there tapping at the keyboards describing a game, and you must be desperate for some action.
Oh yeah, we are absolutely dying to get to the action, and I believe that all the players are also dying to get onto the field.
Yeah, I think so. First and foremost, I think the players want to get back to it. Once any concerns about health and safety are covered, which it seems to have been in this these tests between England and the West Indies, because they've created these bio bubbles. I think we can just focus on the cricket now and see what happens, see how it goes. And a lot of nations are going to be looking at this to see how they go from this point as well. See how it's managed in England.
Indeed, a lot of teams are actually looking at England and the series to see how things will progress. Just like everyone hearing this and everyone around in the cricketing world are looking at FlashScore cricket to see how we are doing things. Thank you very much, Stewart. It's a great pleasure to have you on the show. And I think the listeners would agree with me that they were enriched with your knowledge today.
Thanks very much for having me on this first show. Thanks then.
Well, before we leave you, I think it's time that I hand it over to Kris, who is absolutely buzzing around with the news that's happening around in the cricket world. And he's got some positive news as well. So, Kris, over to you.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't seem like there would be much news, but there definitely is. And most of all, in terms of a positive, as you mentioned, there is, of course, the West Indies tour of England coming up, and we will be covering every ball of that live on FlashScore. So that is certainly something to look forward to. And the West Indies are currently training in an isolated environment, and all three matches will take place in a biosecure environment. So there's no risk whatsoever of any COVID-19 contractions, and the matches will, of course, take place behind closed doors. So everything is all in a biosecure environment. So that is one thing that you can all look forward to coming up from FlashScore, and it'll be interesting to see how those test matches go, obviously without a crowd and in that closed environment. So that'll be something new for the audience to adjust to. But there's obviously an upcoming tour as well in England following that series with the Pakistan team due to arrive as well. And there's been a few more hurdles with that.
Well, I think that's really good news on one part, with West Indies getting ready for the first ball, and so are we as commentators and broadcasters. And as far as Pakistan series is concerned, COVID-19 is going to be part of our lives and part of cricketers' lives as well. So we got to be a bit careful, and we got to be ready for all the eventualities. Having said that, it's a positive sign that the series is still more than a month away from here. So both Pakistan as well as England cricket boards, they have a lot of time in their hands, and they can get things set and get the ball rolling. Just like Stewart and I discussed earlier, this series is going to be the hallmark of how cricket is going to be played from now on for at least the next couple of years. What is going to be that template which will keep all the teams ready and focused while playing under these changed conditions? So, Kris, many thanks for joining the show and giving us all these very good news. I hope the listeners have noted down the upcoming series between England and West Indies. We hope to catch you there from the first ball. And until then, it's a big goodbye from our FlashScore cricket commentary. Thank you for listening.